My name is James Moore. I'm the host of the Dojo Exchange podcast, and today we have Sensei Braden White. All right, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's get started. For our listeners, give me a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been interested in martial arts my entire life. I was born in 95, so as most kids were that grew up in that area, I was obsessed with Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and Three Ninjas, and that's what started it for me. I didn't actually get to start taking lessons until I was 10. My dad was working with a guy who had his own school, and the deal was if I made good grades during the school year, he'd sign me up that summer. And so he signed me up that summer, and 12 schools later, and, jumping in and out of different styles over the next, 11 years or so. So I started training with this guy in 2006 ish. And then he moved away, and I bounced around different schools pretty much until 2021. And then I found out he moved back to the area, and then I started training with him again in 2021. And we've been at it ever since.
So what style?
So,
what styles are? What styles?
my primary is Shotokan. My sensei teaches a blend of 5 different Japanese styles. He takes Shotokan karate, Japanese jiu-jitsu, judo, aikido, and Japanese kabuto. And he has his own curriculum that he's developed called Teashiru Jiu-Jitsu, which is loosely translated to the hand and foot system of combative arts. But our katas are Shotokan katas, our weapons katas. Some of them are traditional, some of them, like the short staff katas, he developed himself. But I've jumped around. I've dabbled in Taekwondo. I did boxing. I've done Kempo. I've done Shaolin Kung Fu. I've dabbled in so many different things, but my base is Shotokan karate.
I started out in Shotokan years ago. Eventually, like from, I think, 8 to 10, and then I quit. And then years later, I got back into Taekwondo, and that's what I'm in now.
Yeah, I've always been told I got good kicks. Like I remember I went to an audition for a film, and they asked for some martial arts stuff, and I started, throwing around some kicks. And the stunt coordinator was there, and he asked me, he was a 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he asked me, he says, "How long have you been doing Taekwondo?" And I was like, I don't really do Taekwondo.
So tell me a little bit about your film background. I know you have that production company.
Yeah, I started my production company in 2021, and it literally just boiled down to me going to auditions. And it's a thing that we call in the film industry, when we go to auditions, we call it getting okay thanks, where you go do your lines and stuff, and they don't really give you any feedback. There's like, okay, thanks, and basically kick you out the door. And I went to several auditions where it was basically that, and it would call for like a physical, demonstration, and they would be like, all right, so I do my lines and be like, okay, cool, we'll get back to you. And I was like, but there was supposed to be like a physical, so well, we kind of have an idea, so we don't need to see that from you. And it was making me mad, because like I know what I'm physically capable of, and people are, judging me based because I'm a larger person, so they're not even giving me the benefit of the doubt. And so, I've always wanted to do films and action movies and stuff like that. And so finally I just, I started writing my own scripts in 2016. And so finally it got to the point to where I was like, well, if no one else is going to take a chance on me, then I'll take a chance on me. And so I formed my LLC. That was actually the easy part. The hard part was finding people who believed in me and believed in what I was doing, and realized that my budgets for my films are not really big at all. And still we're like, you know what, we believe in you. We believe in your passion. We believe in your project. So let's get it done. And here I am 2 feature films later, and working on a 3rd and a 4th kind of at the same time.
So tell me about your feature films, man.
My first one is called Double Cross. It started from, it's a long, tumultuous story, I'll say. But so I was a part of a film that I had also wrote, and me and some of the people that were involved had like a difference of opinion of how the movie should go. So finally I was like, you know what, y'all feel like y'all know what y'all's doing, y'all have that. And so first thing they ended up doing was rewriting my script. So I was like, well, you know what, I'm gonna take this script, rewrite some stuff in it, and now I have my own little thing. And that one was challenging for a lot of different reasons. One of the biggest hurdles that we had to overcome was I had a guy who was a really well-known Taekwondo teacher in my hometown, and he was slated to play my main villain, and he passed away of COVID about 4 months before we started shooting. And so I was scrambling and everything, trying to find somebody who could play him. And I was also living in Virginia at the time, and we were filming in Oklahoma. So I'm trying to like coordinate my work schedule with everyone else's work schedule. And there was actually a couple of shooting days where, you know, they were shooting in Oklahoma, but I was still in Virginia because I couldn't make it down. And that one, it took about 13 shooting days over the course of a year and a half to get done. And we finally got it done. It came out in 2024. We had a premiere, and now it's on Amazon and it's on Fossum TV. My second one is called Dark Deal. That one was so much fun to shoot because I had went through so many, you know, stressful things during the making a Double Cross, namely, you know, people, you know, not really arguing, but like having creative disagreements over the stupidest things. Like I remember I was having a fight scene and the guy said, "All right, I'm gonna kick you like this." I was like, "Okay, cool. If you kick me like this, I'll fall like this. We can do da 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 da." And he was like, "But why would you fall like that?" And we went back and forth about why I'm gonna fall like that. And then it hit me. I was like, "Why am I even having this conversation right now?" But so at Double Cross, we were dealing with all that, and then in Dark Deal, you know, I go and start telling everybody, "All right, so we're gonna do this, that, and the third. I need y'all to be over here," and everyone's like, "Cool, we got it. Let's get it done." And I was like, "Wait, no, we're supposed to go back and forth about this a couple of times, aren't we?" Because my whole experience was, you know, having some creative dialogue, so to speak. But everyone's like, "Nope, whatever you say, let's get it done." And that one took us 8 shooting days over the course of about another year and a half. And it's actually cool. I actually met my roommate making that movie, and
And these are martial art movies, correct?
there's a heavy base of martial arts action. I wouldn't necessarily call them martial arts movies
But like
because to
fighting
me,
scenes
a
and
martial arts movie is a movie where if you take the martial arts aspect out of it, the movie doesn't stand on its own.
gotcha.
But with these two movies, I would say you could take out the martial arts action, replace it with gun action, or, you know, even just like brawler type fight scenes, and the movie would still survive, I believe. But yes, there is an abundance of martial arts in these movies.
Awesome. I'll definitely check it out.
And Dark Deal is also on Fossum TV in case anybody's curious.
Yeah. And where do we find that at? Is it on Roku or?
Fossum TV is like it's an app. It you can get it on a Roku TV. It's free. It operates the exact same way as Tubi does. You know, so you download. It's a free app. You play a movie. It plays some ads, and the more ads it plays, the more back end I get off of it. So if you
It's
want to
awesome.
play it in the background while you're doing dishes or something, I won't be mad at you for it.
So, what's been your biggest inspiration so far in martial arts? I mean, we talked about Power Rangers and stuff. I'm a
Oh
kid of the
yeah, oh
90s
yeah,
too, so I get that.
yeah. I would say that was probably my biggest one up through probably up until I got to high school. Like I was always like I'm even to this day I'm still a Power Ranger fan. So I was like the kid, you know, in high school talking about Power Rangers. Oh yeah, that's weird, but I'm going home catching the latest episode on the weekends and stuff. But it actually evolved out of that. It evolved from me like wanting to be a Power Ranger to like me having a genuine love of the martial arts. And my biggest problem that I have with myself is I compare myself to other people too much. And so like let's say, you know, Scott Adkins puts out a new movie and I'm like the first one in line to buy it on Amazon, and then he's throwing out these killer fight scenes and stuff, and then I start getting mad at myself because I'm just like, you know, why am I even trying? He's got it covered. Like, but you know, the biggest thing that inspires me is currently is just doing better. Like in terms of my movies, the only thing that I worry about is doing stuff better than I did last time.
Yeah, I get that.
But other than that, yeah, that's really my only thing is just doing better than what I did last time and trying not to compare myself to anybody else.
Have you met any famous martial artists yet?
I met Cynthia Rothrock about 14 years ago.
She's scheduled to be on the podcast.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I met her just at a local karate tournament. It wasn't like a big fancy like a pro mac or a NASCA tournament. It was just a little backwoods of the mountains, Kentucky karate tournament. And I met Johnny Young Bosch from Power Rangers. I met him last September.
How was he?
He was cool. Like I talked about him. I talked to him about told him of course him and his castmates are the reason I got into martial arts. And he said, man, I love hearing that. And I told him, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm a third-degree black belt. And he's like, oh man, that's awesome. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like I've never seen anybody get excited about me. So yeah, that
Jason
was
David
cool.
Frank, he was the same way, man.
Yeah, I passed up a couple opportunities to go meet him, and I really wish I hadn't have passed him up because
Yeah.
because I was feeling some kind of way about some of the things he was doing, and I took it more personally than I should have, and then of course unfortunately he passed away, so I was like, dang, and it really made me start like reflecting. I was like, man, like that's his business, it's not mine. I shouldn't have took it personally.
Yeah. I get it though. I felt the same way.
But yeah, those are really the main two.
So how has martial arts affected you on the outside the dojo, like your personal life?
It's actually helped me quite a bit. I come from a law enforcement and corrections family. I actually used to work in jails and prisons myself.
Me too,
So
man.
nice. And so it it helps a lot, not just like on the physical side of like controlling inmates or anything like that, but it it helps have patience and more understanding, and I guess you could say more empathy,
Yeah.
listening to the inmates and everything. And I had several of them come up to me and tell me that they liked when I was on shift because if they had a problem, they knew I would listen to them and try my best to help figure out what they needed. And I was that way. Like even if we did have a scuffle, they'd be like, "Man, I didn't know if you was still tripping about what happened Tuesday." I'm like, "Man, what happened on Tuesday happened on Tuesday. It's Friday now.
Yeah.
Let's get over it."
Yeah. Same, dude. Same. What I think what helped me a lot with that was, for one, like the tenets of Taekwondo, integrity, perseverance, self control, dominant spirit, all that. That's like my code of honor. You know what I mean? But didn't have an ego, so I never had anything to prove. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was kind of me. I
Yeah.
really didn't feel like I had anything I needed to prove. But also, that also, showed the inmate something, I'm willing to do anything that, that's not going to get me in trouble. First of all,
Yeah.
if it's something I can do for you, I will do for you. But at the same time, they knew,
Yep.
don't take it there because it's not going to end well.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked at a prison for about 4 years, and then I worked at a jail for 2. Then I went to the academy. I was an instructor at the academy for a little while. Then I became an investigator, and then career change. I ended up getting burnt out, and I went back to, I'm an EMT now. So, but
Nice.
thank you.
Yeah. I just left working at a jail. I bounced back and forth. I've worked at 6 different facilities. I've worked at 3 different state prisons in 3 different states. I've worked in 3 different county jails, and
What state?
I worked at one in Virginia, one in Oklahoma, and one in Arkansas. And then I worked at one county jail in Arkansas and 2 county jails in Oklahoma. And one of the counties, the one I just left, was actually my second tenure working there. And then
Yes.
kind of like you, I just kind of got burnt out. And,
Yeah.
I prior to going back to that jail, I was working armed security. And so I felt like that's where I kind of you know, found where I fit. And so I went back to doing armed security now. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing currently.
So how often do you train?
I try to train as often as I can, which I live on a second floor apartment, so it doesn't really,
Yeah.
allow itself to, it doesn't give me a lot of time to train. But I have a buddy who owns a taekwondo school in Oklahoma, so whenever I go down there, I'll ask him if I can, come and train. Either while he has class or if he doesn't have class, he'll, leave the key out for me. And I can go in there and train by myself sometimes. So I've done that a couple of times.
Nice. Nice. So do you plan on opening up a school yourself?
I would love to go back to opening up my own school. I've had 2 different, I wouldn't really call them like my own schools because it was my class, but it was out of another building. So my first class was in 2016 and I taught for about 4 months, and I was teaching out of a church, and then the church changed their insurance policy. So my program wasn't covered anymore. I even tried to get my own insurance and we're like, no, it wouldn't work that way. And it was just too much of an argument to have. So I was like, all right, it's whatever. And then in 2023, I moved from Virginia to Oklahoma, and a buddy of mine owned a gym, and off to the side he had another room where he was doing like boxing and jujitsu and stuff. And so I asked him if I could start a karate program, and I did that for about a year before I moved here to Arkansas. And I haven't really taught I haven't taught in over 2 years now.
Yeah, when I worked for the academy, I didn't have time to teach like Taekwondo, so I had to take a hiatus from the actual teaching, but I still did it daily. You know what I mean? I taught defensive
Yeah.
tactics, but I
Mhm.
just couldn't teach here.
Yeah, but I would love to get back to opening my own school. You know, if for nothing else, then I have my own place to train.
Yeah,
You
absolutely,
know,
man.
I mean,
Like,
I love teaching and everything, but I'd say I get more, satisfaction out of training than I do teaching. You know, not
yeah,
to say that I don't love teaching, because I do. It's just I enjoy training a lot more.
yeah, yeah. It's about 50-50. I love it both equally. Like, I'll, I'll come in here maybe 2 nights out of the week and train by myself, and then I have class 2 nights a week as well. So like 4 nights altogether, you know. But
Yeah, yeah. See, I would love to have something like that where I can just go and train anytime I want to.
so, who's your favorite martial artist?
Right now is Scott Atkins.
Okay,
I'm sure you know who that
yeah,
is.
yeah,
A second, close second would be Brent Foster, and then of course there's my sensei, but that's more of a personal thing. But
yeah. So, what's your favorite martial arts movie?
that is probably the hardest question anybody could ever ask me, because it changes daily. My go-to answer, because it's usually the one I revert back to, is I don't know if you've seen them, but the Accident Man movies that Scott Adkins made.
I think I may have seen one of them.
Yeah, he made two of them. First one came out in 2018. The second one came out in 2022.
Yeah, I think I'm
They're
pretty sure I
action
saw the
comedy
first one.
movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are, you know I've seen them so many times that it gets to a point where I'll feel like I want to watch it, and I'll be like, do I really? And then I'll watch it, and then I'll be like, I'm really glad I did this. This was the best decision I've made today.
like my all-time favorite is probably Bloodsport, just because I mean it's so cheesy now, but like I love it. It
I mean, the
was
fight scenes still hold up to
yeah,
to me, in my opinion.
absolutely.
But if it's not Accident Man, then I would have to say Life After Fighting that Bryn Foster made. That one's killer.
So do you do any competitions?
Uh, Not recently. If you look right there, I
I see
have
all the
some.
medals. Yeah,
Yeah, I see. I got a couple second and third place. The only time I've gotten first place is when I was the only person in my division. So I don't really like to put those
yeah,
up. But I got the second and third place ones. I got competing with my instructors. So I compete a little bit here and there. I haven't competed in probably 4 years now.
yeah. It's been well over a decade for me, man. One of like this, we found this when we were cleaning out. It's one of my old medals, and now it's just the
Wow.
wind chime. Now it's more about the students. You know what I mean? Getting them ready. Getting them.
Yeah, yeah. Like this whole this is my office in my apartment. This whole wall is like nothing but martial arts stuff.
That's awesome. What's your
Yeah, I
favorite
love
weapon?
competing though. My
Yeah,
favorite
me too.
weapon, it goes back and forth between either the bow staff or the nunchuck. I'm self-taught for the most part on both of them. I've learned one form with the bow staff, and I just kind of freestyle with the nunchuck, just hand-eye coordination type stuff.
Yeah,
All the cool spins and stuff like that. It's a cool party trick.
yeah. My favorite weapon is bow staff. I practiced Iaido for about a year, and that's actually pretty. I mean, I don't know if you ever got into that, but like with a samurai
A
sword,
little
like a
bit, yeah.
katana, yeah,
Yeah, I did a little bit
that's
of I've
it's
done a
pretty
little
fun.
bit of both kendo and iaido. With my experience, it was iaido was more about the drawing of the sword, and the kendo was more of the fighting with the sword.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have any more like any movie plans coming up?
I'm trying to schedule my next shoot days for a movie that I've been working on, that it's probably been the biggest passion project that I have. And the origin story of the movie is really kind of simple, but it's ended up meaning so much more. The only criteria that I had when I was writing this movie was I wanted to play a private investigator, and I wanted the story to revolve around human trafficking, because human trafficking always does well for action movies.
Yeah,
And then between me doing the research that I needed, to make sure that, it was, you know, portrayed in a real life kind of way, it actually brought out like a passion. And, it's made me realize that human trafficking is something that is not talked about enough. And so it's my goal that with this movie, that people understand, because people always watch, like the Taken movies with Liam Neeson, and they're
Yeah.
in foreign countries, or you got most human trafficking movies that I see take place in like Thailand or Indonesia or something like that. Is like, and I feel like, I come from small town America. I grew up in a, you know, town of less than 1,000 people in Oklahoma. Like, and people need to understand that human trafficking happens in small towns too.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this movie specifically to show that, just because you live in a small town doesn't mean you're impervious to stuff like this happening. And so that's basically the whole movie. That's the message of the movie right there. And like, my character is not a special forces commando, spec ops soldier. He's just a private investigator who happens to know karate. And and his whole thing is he's not on a mission to bring down a human trafficking ring. He's just looking for a specific someone and bring them home. And that's literally it, and everything else is just a byproduct of his determination to get this person and bring them home. And so we've filmed 3 or 4 days already on it, and if I can schedule it correctly, we probably only have about another 3 or 4 to go. But the problem right now is, everyone is available at different times and no one's available, like person playing this character is in scenes with this character, but their schedules don't line up, or my schedule doesn't line up with me being in a scene with this person. And so it's probably logistically the most challenging movie I've ever tried to make. But in the meantime, I'm also working on another movie that I think I could probably film in 4 days, because it takes place in very minimal locations. And that one it's kind of a cliche story. There's tons of, little B movies that are made that have this similar kind of plot where my character, you know, is doing like amateur cage fights in a big city, decides he wants to come home because he needs a change of scenery. So he comes back to, his aunt and uncle who raised him, and his uncle owns a karate school, and he's in debt. And so he's in debt to a loan shark. So my character decides to, go to the loan shark and be like, hey, I'll fight for you if, every fight I win, that money goes towards the debt. And
That's
then, it's a solid, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds
And
good. I'd watch
so,
it.
yeah. And so I'm hoping maybe we can start filming that in September, because like I said, I think we could film it in 4 days. And, if we can film it all in 4 days and have it all filmed within September, October, I could probably have that one out by next summer.
It's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, everyone who's read the script said, it's simple, but it works. And so, and it was probably, um, I'll actually go ahead and tell you the full story. So that one came about. I was married at the time. I was living in Virginia, and we just got done doing a theater play, like a little small community theater play. And I was really impressed with how everyone carried themselves and handled themselves. So I was like, and I'd had this idea of this movie for like 10 years at this point. I just never could find a way to crack it the right way. So I had attempted to write it several times. And so finally I decided, I was like, you know what? I feel like, let's let's try again. And I'm gonna put, the people that were in this play with me, I'm gonna put them in the movie. And so I started writing it. It was going good. And then a couple months later, I ended up getting divorced. And so I kind of left it alone. I got about 20 pages in on the script and kind of left it alone. And I didn't touch it just because it brought back it brought back memories that I'd rather just leave in the past. And so I didn't touch it. And then the movie Life After Fighting comes out with Bren Foster. And if you haven't seen that movie, basically the whole last 45 minutes is a giant fight scene in a taekwondo school. And like that's literally the last 45 minutes of the movie. It's just one giant fight scene. And so I'm watching it and I was like, I would love to do a movie where it's just like a free for all in a dojo. That just looks cool. And then I started thinking and I was like, well, I have this one, but I'm really not sure I want to pick it back up yet. And so I pondered on it for a couple of days, and then I actually went to go touch up a different script, and I saw it in my folder on my computer, and I was like, well, let me just read it, because sometimes I get too into the moment and I'll think, oh man, this is really good, when in actuality it's absolute trash. So I was like, well, I'm far enough removed from it now, so let me read it and see if I actually have something here. And so I started reading it, and then I got about halfway through what I had written at that point, and I was like, oh man, this is actually good. And so I decided, well, let's go ahead and
Hang on one second, buddy. I'm back.
all right. Well, like I said, I got about halfway through reading what I had, and I was like, oh man, this is actually pretty good. Let me go ahead and try it. And so I finished the first draft. I sent it out to some people. I was like, hey, give me some feedback. And they were like, well, it's all good up until the ending. They said the ending didn't make sense. And then after they explained why the ending doesn't make sense, I was like, yeah, that really absolutely does not make sense. So I reworked it a little bit, and now everyone's happy with it. I got a full cast, and like I said, hopefully we can start shooting in September. And that one's called A Fighting Chance.
Hmm. Definitely have to check it out when it comes out.
But yeah, believe me, every time a movie that I make comes out, it's all over social media for like at least 3 weeks. People get tired of seeing me.
Yeah, make sure you link your stuff with me as well. Even if you have new stuff coming up, I'll share it.
For sure, for sure.
Let me get back here. I do have one more thing to ask you. So, if you could leave one lesson for the next generation of martial artists, what would it be?
One lesson for the next generation, I would probably say, is worry not so much about other people around you and focus on trying to be the best that you can be. Because as I mentioned before, I spend too much time comparing myself to other martial artists, whether it be like going to a tournament and be like, oh, I'm nowhere near good as that guy, or watching an action movie and seeing a fight scene and be like, oh, why do I even make action movies? They got it covered, obviously. So I would say my biggest advice would be, just focus on being the best you can be, and then everything else will fall into place after that.
Yeah, that's solid advice, man. Solid advice. I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been fun. We'll have to do this again.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, especially
Yeah, for sure.
as soon as you have a next movie coming out, hit me up and we'll talk about it.
All right, for sure. I'll send you links to my other ones too, and you can, share them if you feel like it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thank you.
All right, man. I appreciate it, man.
Bye.
Bye bye.